September 12, 1918. German machine gunners unleashed fire across no man's land near St. Mihiel. American doughboys fought, crawling through mud and barbed wire, as artillery shells turned men into mist and poison gas drifted over the war-torn landscape. More than 500,000 troops were locked in a fight to the death in one of the most violent battles the world had ever witnessed. This monumental effort was supported by the largest air armada ever assembled. But let's introduce a twist. What unfolds when Earth's most advanced fighter jet is unleashed during one of history's first air wars? Can it single-handedly clear the skies, or is it merely one aircraft against hundreds? The F-22 Raptor glides at Mach 1.5 without afterburners. That's 1,100 miles per hour. In stark contrast, the finest German fighter of 1918, the Fokker D7, topped out at 120 miles per hour. The Raptor can ascend to 20,000 feet in a mere 2 minutes. The Fokker requires 18 minutes to reach that same altitude, assuming its engine holds up. The jet is armed with a 20mm Vulcan cannon that fires 100 rounds per second. 1 second of this devastating fire delivers more destruction than the entire magazine of a World War I fighter's twin machine guns. Its explosive shells would instantly shred wooden and canvas planes into confetti. The Raptor's avionics system processes threats faster than a World War I pilot can even blink. Its fly-by-wire controls make micro-adjustments thousands of times every second, while German pilots struggled manually with control sticks directly linked to the wings. The technological gulf, spanning nearly a century of evolution, is glaringly evident. However, a critical problem arises. The F-22's radar-guided missiles need a clear lock-on, and a wooden biplane barely registers as a blip. The heat-seeking Sidewinder missiles search for the thousands of degree heat of modern jet exhaust. A World War I piston engine runs cooler than a modern car, meaning the missiles would likely circle in confusion, unable to find a viable target. This reduces the fifth-generation fighter, designed to kill from beyond visual range, to a dogfight role with its gun, carrying only 480 rounds, a meager 5 seconds of continuous fire. The Germans had deployed 65,000 defenders at St. Mihiel, protected by squadrons of Fokker Dogfight, the very plane that so terrified Allied pilots they demanded its specific ban in the armistice. These were not rookies, but veterans fighting since 1914, men skilled enough to weave their planes through artillery barrages and land on muddy fields by moonlight. Commanding the Allied Air Force was Colonel Billy Mitchell, with 1,400 planes, including French Spads, British Sopwith Camels, and American-flown DH-4 South. Among them flew Eddie Rickenbacker, America's ace of aces, in his distinctive Spad 13. At dawn on September 12th, the F-22 pilot spotted his first targets, a squadron of German observation planes directing artillery fire onto the advancing Americans. Pushing the throttle, the Raptor quickly accelerated past the sound barrier. The German pilots heard nothing. Their first warning was the explosion of the plane next to them. No enemy was visible, just pieces of their wingmen falling like rain. The F-22, already 2 miles away, pulled a 9G turn, a maneuver impossible for any human to survive in a World War I cockpit. The pilot lined up for another pass, but throttled back. Trying to dogfight at Mach 2 against planes flying at 80 miles per hour is like using a Formula One car to chase pedestrians. Even at its minimum speed, the Raptor risked stalling at 140 miles per hour, faster than the target's maximum velocity. The jet changed tactics. Diving from altitude, it fired a quarter-second burst while climbing vertically before anyone could react. Each pass claimed another German plane as the wooden frames disintegrated, fabric wings shredded, and pilots didn't even have time to bail out, but ammunition depleted quickly. After 12 passes, the count was down to 200 rounds. The jet had one other weapon, Accelerating to Mach 1.2, it dove toward German positions at 500 feet, delivering a sonic boom that struck like an invisible sledgehammer. Soldiers below clutched their ears as blood ran between their fingers. Horses panicked and bolted. Men who had survived 2 years in the trenches ran screaming from a force they could neither understand nor fight. Artillery officers abandoned their calculations, unable to track a target moving at incomprehensible speed, and communication lines flooded with panicked reports of a menace far beyond German engineering. The pilot made another supersonic pass over German artillery, sending deafening shock waves. Entire units abandoned their positions, convinced the Americans had deployed an apocalyptic new weapon. Word spread through German lines. A silver demon that moved faster than sound was almost impossible to hit and impossible to escape. Pilots refused to take off, and infantry refused to advance. The carefully planned German withdrawal turned into a rout. By noon, the F-22 had exhausted its ammunition, forcing the pilot to make a critical decision. He had enough fuel for perhaps 1 more hour of flight, but where could he land? Every airfield was a grass strip. The Raptor needed 3,000 feet of smooth runway, and landing on a muddy field could destroy the engines, assuming he could even find aviation fuel to ever use those engines again in a world that ran on gasoline refined from coal. Spotting a straight road near Allied lines, he committed. The landing was rough. The jet's tires, designed for modern tarmac, churned up the dirt road, but he was down and alive. American mechanics rushed to examine this impossible machine. They found materials that wouldn't be invented for decades: titanium alloys and carbon fiber composites. The jet engine alone operated at temperatures that would melt any metal known to them. They couldn't even refuel it, as the kerosene available in 1918 was lamp oil full of impurities that would destroy the turbines. They couldn't rearm it because no one had 20 millimeters ammunition, and the cannon's linkless feed system was beyond their comprehension. The F-22 sat useless, a glimpse of the future that couldn't be maintained or replicated. Yet, within hours, every German plane in the sector had either abandoned the fight or was destroyed. The St. Mihiel offensive, planned for 3 days, succeeded in 1, and American casualties were minimal. German forces were still terrified of the demon aircraft, fearing its return, but it never flew again. Without the proper fuel, ammunition, or the massive support infrastructure modern jets require, the Raptor became a monument to technological superiority that was meaningless without logistics. The pilot couldn't even share what he knew. What he could teach was like showing calculus to someone learning to count. The F-22 ruled the skies for the few hours it was present, tearing through German planes effortlessly and turning St. Mihiel into a one-sided fight. It terrified the Germans and saved thousands of lives. However, its time in the war was brief, and once it vanished, the front lines returned to their grim status quo. The war continued with conventional forces, and Germany still surrendered in November. The F-22's contribution was decisive for one morning, but ultimately irrelevant in the grand scheme. Little more than a legend whispered in the trenches. It could dominate a battle, but it couldn't win a war, and its impact ended the moment it left field. What do you think would have happened next? And what other historical scenario would you like to explore?